Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the live stream today. So, how will your parish be affected? How will your Latin Mass parish be affected by these new reforms of Pope Francis? And yesterday I made a video about how I think that it really depends on your bishop. And that so far has been true. Different bishops have released different statements. And so I'm going to get to that first. Archbishop Cordileone released a statement. It said, I don't want to say it said a whole lot of nothing, but he basically said um, the things in the Archdiocese of San Francisco, the Latin Mass in the Archdiocese of San Francisco, the Latin Masses that are said by the priests will not change. And so he's not going to do anything. Um, so the good bishops are going to keep things as is, and the bad bishops, well, we'll see what happens. So Bishop Anthony Taylor of Little Rock, Arkansas, released a statement yesterday, and it says, Bishop, it's on the diocesan website. I have it in the link in the description. The title is Bishop Addresses Limits to the Latin Mass, and it's a long, it's a long statement, so I'm not going to read everything. But he said that the Traditionis Custodes, Article 3, Number 2, indicates that the Latin Mass is not to be celebrated in regular parish churches, and so will no longer be celebrated in El Dorado, Mountain Home, or Cherokee Village. So he's eliminating 2 of the Latin Masses in his diocese. That's pathetic. He said, I am to designate locations where the Latin Mass can be celebrated, and these are personal parishes of St. John the Baptist. So he's specifying 2 churches where the Latin Masses can be celebrated in his diocese, and he's eliminating 2 Latin Masses. This Bishop Taylor, he's a rainbow bishop. He supports that kind of nonsense, and so there's no surprise he would be hostile towards the Catholic faith. And I do want to go towards, like, I guess you hear it from exorcists all the time, the devil hates Latin. So what does that say about the bishops and the cardinals and the popes that are hostile towards the Latin Mass? Anyway, let's see if he has anything else important to say. So there's no change of the FSSP. So this is one of the statements of the corrupt bishops. And I would expect, there are Latin Masses that are going to be shut down even this weekend. He already did it. But in the good dioceses, nothing's going to happen. And I think even the corrupt bishops, I think they will still have some Latin Mass parishes available. Let's be honest. In a lot of dioceses, there might be 1 Latin Mass offered a week. So shutting those down, the motu proprio doesn't say shut down all Latin Masses. I think some of the horribly corrupt bishops may interpret it that way, but very few of them, I think, will completely eliminate all Latin Masses in their dioceses. But if that's the case, the SSPX will come in, and I think in terms of the SSPX, it's going to be tough for them because they're going to face increasing criticism from people, oh, they're schismatic, oh, well. But they could potentially face excommunication because they're going to say, okay, this motu proprio is not Catholic, it's not in line with the teachings of the Catholic faith, and so we're just going to disregard it. And so they could potentially face excommunication, but it really depends if Pope Francis, how long he lives. He rushed this he rushed this document. He released it, and it took place immediately. So why? Like, why did he rush it? Why was it implemented immediately? There was no warning. The bishops, most of the bishops were caught off guard. They heard rumors, and we all heard rumors, and I was one of the people who said, don't be a Chicken Little trad. Well, this is pretty bad. It's not a good document. I'm going to be honest. For a lot of people, they're not going to be affected. Let me know in the comments how your Latin Mass parish is going to be affected. or how you think your Latin Mass parish will be affected by this if you have a Latin Mass parish, because I think for most of us it's not going to be affected. Like there would be very little, there will be very little, very little impact by this motu proprio on Latin Mass parishes as they exist. But I'm not going to go. I want to go through this document a little bit, but I'm not going to cover everything. Taylor Marshall went point by point, and if you want to watch his video, he's going to cover all of that. Also, in the link in the video description, I have Restoring the Faith Media interviewed Dr. Peter Kwasniewski, and they were just discussing the impact of this. So you can watch, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, watch those two channels, see what they have to say on that. They have a lot of insight. It's a long video. I'm not planning on doing like an hour coverage of this. But there are some particular concerns. And so let's see here. The bishop, no. I have considered it appropriate to establish the following. To appoint a priest who, as a delegate of the bishop, is entrusted with these celebrations and the pastoral care of these groups of the faithful, this priest should be suited for this responsibility, skilled in the use of the Missal Romanum antecedent to the Reform of 1970, possess a knowledge of Latin language sufficient for the thorough comprehension of the rubrics and liturgical texts, and to be animated by lively pastoral charity, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so this means that the priest should delegate a bishop for the Latin Mass as like a Latin Mass director for the diocese. So the priest needs to possess a knowledge of the Latin language sufficient for thorough comprehension of the rubrics. All right, so let's talk about canon law. Canon law requires seminarians to understand Latin. So if you say, okay, the priest must possess the knowledge of the Latin language. Well, if they're deficient, if any priest is deficient in that area, that's an indication that your diocese has not followed canon law. So how about that? So, all right. That's kind of like what Bishop Barron said about, how he would permit his seminarians at Mundelein Seminary to learn the Latin Mass. I don't think that says anything about Bishop Barron being a bad seminary rector. I'm not making any judgments on that in this video. But I think he said that he would permit seminarians to learn the Latin Mass if they had an understanding of Latin. Well, they should, because it's required by canon law. Just like in this situation. It's required by canon law for seminarians to understand Latin. So if a priest doesn't understand Latin, what does that say about a seminary formation? Not compliant with canon law. All right. And then Institute of Consecrated Institutes. Okay, yeah, the institute's removed. Okay, and where's the part about... Oh, there was the part about new parishes. Let's see. I'm sorry, guys. Well, I don't know. I can't. There's really not a lot in here. Okay, yes. So let's see here. Is to designate. So the bishop is to designate one or more locations where the faithful adherents of these groups may gather for the Eucharistic celebration, not, however, in the parochial churches without the erection of new personal parishes. So there cannot be Latin Mass parishes, like a specific Latin Mass parish, personal parish in the diocese. Those are banned, it looks like. So I don't think this applies to the Institute of Christ the King or the FSSP. But so it looks like each diocese is required to have a Latin Mass parish. So I don't know what that means. Like I don't know how that's going to play out. But given that a lot of dioceses only have like one parish, one Latin Mass parish, that's not going to close the parish, I don't think, if there's only one that exists. And for the like, and I think it looks like the Institute and the FSSP are going to be a little bit more restricted. There's some kind of like Vatican II loyalty test, um, but they'll figure it out. If they're pushed too far, I think they're going to end up resisting or ignoring it, because it's really not Catholic what this whole thing is. It doesn't ban the Latin Mass. It does abrogate Summorum Pontificum at the end. It says previous norms, instructions, permissions, and customs that do not conform to the provisions of the present motu proprio are abrogated. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I see some comments coming in. It says probably pushed through by influential bishops like the John the 23rd papacy. Yeah, and I guess with this, there was like a cover letter that was included on this, and a lot of people are saying that it was particularly a hateful tone by Pope Francis. So I don't think this impacts necessarily Latin Mass parishes as they exist right now. So you don't have to worry about your parish right now. But if you're looking to get more Latin Mass, more Latin Masses in your diocese, this is going to restrict it. It's going to be up to the discretion of the bishops. You're going to have to petition the bishop to say the Latin Mass. Priests are going to have to seek permission from the bishop to say the Latin Mass, which wasn't a problem. What do I say? It's not necessarily very new. Priests already did this. I think it was just more of like a goodwill request from the bishop, like saying, "Hey, I want to say the Latin Mass. Are you okay with that?" And if the bishop said no, then they'd say, "Well, it doesn't matter." Like most priests wouldn't say it doesn't matter. Most priests would say, "Oh, obedience, all this stuff," but they didn't have to. They could have just said, "Sorry, bishop, I'm going to say it anyway," and say it anyway. Now the problem is that's one of the biggest problems with this is new Latin masses, and there are groups, including myself. I'm trying to get a local Latin mass said like on a weekday, and this poses some problems. Now, depending on whether or not you have a corrupt bishop, that's gonna be the key here. Because you say, okay, we have statistics. We have like this number of people that are interested in a Latin Mass. It's not every day. It's either weekly or monthly, whatever. And you petition the bishop and say, okay, this is one Mass out of all the Masses that are offered in the entire diocese, so it's really shouldn't be a big deal. And the bishop is going to say, oh, there's not a pastoral need, blah blah blah. Okay, we have the statistics. We're going to have people like. We'll have people attending this Mass. We're requesting it. How many people have you lost whenever you shut down the churches? How many people didn't come back? How many people come to your daily Masses? How many people are not able to make it to your daily Masses because you don't offer any evening Masses? And so if you offer an evening Mass, an evening Latin Mass, how many people are going to show up? And for us, it's a great evangelization opportunity. But for the bishop, depending on whether or not they see the Latin Mass as a threat, like a lot of the people in the hierarchy in the Vatican, they'll say, oh well, we don't need one of those. Well, okay, we have the personnel, we have the priest. What's the big deal? How is it threatening your diocese? It's not, because your diocesan priest is going to be saying the Latin Mass. Otherwise people might go to the SSPX and give them their money. But if the diocese gets money from the government, not a big deal. Now, what I feel particularly bad about is the seminarians. There are lots of seminarians who are traditional. Doesn't matter. Diocesan, religious orders, chances are that a majority of the seminarians have at least been exposed to the Latin Mass, at least appreciate the tradition of the Catholic faith. Because if you look at it, and I was telling someone off the radar yesterday, I don't know how to say this politically correct, but the the seminarians who, because let's be honest, there were some seminarians in the past who were attracted to men, and it could have been a reason why they decided to join the seminary, decades ago. And there's probably still a few here and there, but for the most part, the seminarians now, they're being Catholic is not a popular thing. It's not going to be, no matter what Pope Francis says, it's not going to be popular in the world. Um, so with these seminarians that were joining the seminary, now a lot of the seminarians believe in the Catholic faith. And that's something that we haven't had for a while, because a lot of the seminarians before, when they were joining the seminary, it was a good career path. You just say some vague statements about the Catholic faith in your sermons and all this stuff. You work on the weekends, and then you have the rest of the week off pretty much, or whatever, do administrative tasks, and you can live your double life. And now it seems like with the growth in the Latin Mass and the seminaries, I mean, it's still, in some seminaries, it's still an underground thing, but in a lot of seminaries, it was readily available. So now the seminarians have the Catholic faith. A lot of them are becoming more traditional, whether it's the diocesan or religious order. So it's really, really disappointing for the seminarians, because they're going to have to send a permission slip to Rome to say the Latin Mass once they're ordained. And a lot of them are locked in pretty far. The ones that have been ordained deacons, they're like, oh, cool, I'm going to say the Latin Mass when I'm ordained. Well, guess what? Now you need to submit your permission slip to Rome, and you know how long it takes to get an answer from Rome on anything, except the Latin Mass, except banning or except restricting the Latin Mass. You can see that is pretty quick. A response on denying people communion on the tongue was pretty quick for Bishop Sticca. So the things that go against the Catholic faith, you get a response quickly, but everything else takes forever. It takes a very long time. So I feel really bad for these seminarians. That's what I can say about that. So let me see about the comments here. There's no document in Vatican II that does away with the Latin Mass, so if Francis is following the teachings of the Council like he says, then he cannot stop it. Well, there's a lot of debate on that. No, certainly Vatican II ended in, what was it, 65? Was it 64 or 65? Vatican II ended, and then I think it was 65. Then 4 years later, the Novus Ordo was promulgated. So there's a 4-year gap in between the ending of Vatican II and the promulgation of the Novus Ordo. And Benedict Summorum Pontificum said, yeah, the Latin Mass was never abrogated, but this motu proprio seems to suggest otherwise. And the priests were literally, everyone thought that Summorum Pontificum when Benedict said the Latin Mass was never abrogated. Most traditionalists, especially now, think that's complete nonsense. They think that that's false, because all the priests were forced to say the Novus Ordo, except for Lefebvre. Like, that's kind of how it works. And so what are you trying to do? Restrict the priesthood. And you have these traditional priests, they say the Novus Ordo and the Latin Mass. So how's it hurting? Like, how is it a threat to the Novus Ordo? How is the Latin Mass the Novus Ordo how is the Latin Mass a threat to the Novus Ordo? When these priests, these diocesan priests, generally say both the Novus Ordo and the Latin Mass. I just don't get it. And the Latin Mass, in general, in a lot of places, unless you're in a religious order, like the FSSP, the Latin Mass is offered at a very inconvenient time. Like late morning, afternoon. There's afternoon Latin Masses on a Sunday. How inconvenient is that? I'd rather go to like a 9 a.m., 8 a.m. Latin Mass if it's offered. But if it's not offered, I can't go to it. So Sunday morning, I like Mass on Sunday mornings. That's my that's my perspective. That's my preference. And I think a lot of people agree with that. Now, college students, maybe they'll like the really late morning Latin Masses, the afternoon ones, and there are some Latin Masses that are offered at like 5 p.m. on a Sunday. That's not convenient at all, but people go to them because, and you see these communities, they're growing, despite these inconvenient times, what if they were offered at more convenient times? Okay, I see a comment. I would like both forms at every parish. Well, I actually, my preference is no Novus Ordos, but that's just my preference. I don't think, I think that the Latin Mass should be exclusive. I think there should be personal parishes for Latin Masses. Every diocese, I think, ideally should have a Latin Mass um, parish exclusively, like every region, so every county, because I know here in Pennsylvania we have dioceses that cover a number of different counties. Like every county should have sort of like a Latin Mass hub. That would be the ideal. Abrogate the balloon mass. Yes. Well, and that's another thing. And Pope Francis, there's a picture of him celebrating the balloon mass as Cardinal Bergoglio. It's floating around the internet. Just take a look. Now, I don't know if it's specifically the balloon mass, but he is celebrating at like this makeshift altar table where there's balloons behind him. So it's pretty interesting. But imagine the Church of Pachamama. And I said this in the video yesterday, but imagine the Church of Pachamama, how they would react if a Catholic Pope were to say all Novus Ordo masses should be celebrated ad Orientem. Like, can you imagine the outrage? And I've heard stories about how there was a priest decided to celebrate an ad Orientem Novus Ordo, and people walked out because they thought it was a Latin Mass. How insane is that? Catholic Church, yeah, all right. So, so yeah, but these are the people that are celebrating. These people have never been to a Latin Mass, or maybe they've been to a Latin Mass and they were repulsed by the Catholic, by the Catholicism that was projected there. And these people, these heretics that are celebrating these restrictions on the Latin Mass, and I want to kind of read through here. They're celebrating. Why? It doesn't affect them whatsoever. It affects their interactions with trads online. Now the trads are going to be more hostile towards their heresy. Okay, so it says to promote the concord and unity of the church. Unity? That's one of the buzzwords of Vatican II, unity. All right, unity, yay. What does that even mean? So we heard the bishops talk about unity at the USCCB meeting, the corrupt bishops, the Biden bishops. They said, we need unity. Well, you know what? What does unity mean? Unity with the Catholic faith? Does it mean unity with the majority? Because they were in the significant minority. Only 25%, not 75% of bishops wanted to move forward on a document that talked about the Eucharist, potentially denying Joe Biden communion. 75%, that's pretty much a consensus. That's gonna and these bishops say, oh, we need to not talk about denying people communion because it goes against unity. Well, who's not united with the majority of the bishops? The corrupt bishops are not united with the majority of the bishops of the USCCB, so that completely destroys any idea of unity. But when we're talking about unity within the church, what are we talking about? Different rites? Are we talking about unity within the Roman Rite? I don't know. Because I know that there's a bunch of different rites of masses that are said. So when we're talking about unity, are you gonna wipe out all of the Byzantine churches? Are you gonna say you need to celebrate this rite that we're gonna create and force on you? Are you gonna eliminate all the Maronites, all the Maronite liturgies? Are you gonna eliminate the Anglican Ordinariate? And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Anglican Ordinariate. I'm actually not very familiar with it, but I know it's sort of like the Novus Ordo. It's in the vernacular, except it's like much better. All right, so we're I see in the live chat, what do we got? Someone they're saying Francis was not canonically elected. Now from my perspective, and I know it's getting a harder position to defend. I got to be honest. I still think Pope Francis is a valid pope, and that's my perspective. And it's getting very difficult to defend that position, or at least defend the position that he's still Pope, because a lot of people believe that he has defected from his office because of his errors. I feel like I don't really know. I don't have much more to comment on that because I'm not canonically I don't understand the implications of canon law and all of that stuff. Now I still pray for Pope Francis. I think that all of you need to pray for Pope Francis. It's certainly, after you say your rosary, there's the Our Father, Hail Mary, and Glory Be for the Pope. It's usually for the Pope's intentions, but I pray for the Pope because the Pope's intentions, I've gone over that before. Some of them are very, like one was for, I think in November of 2020 or 2019, I don't even remember. It was for an expansion of the role of women in the church, and I said, there's nothing like there's not really, that's not reasonable, and that's not Catholic. And so I pray for the Pope. Not that I disagree with all the Pope's intentions. Yeah, I pray for his conversion. Yeah, well, and you just pray for him because everyone needs prayers. You pray for, like Jesus said, pray for your enemies. Um, I don't think that's a bad thing, especially, and I think what it does, especially if you're praying for the people that you disagree with, I think it fosters more of a sense of humility. But obviously, when someone dies, people shouldn't celebrate. They should pray for their soul, regardless of what state they were, what religion, because it's certainly possible. A baptism of desire is certainly possible. Not that it's likely, but it's possible. Yeah, I see a lot of a lot of comments about praying for Pope Francis. Yeah, great. All right, so is there anything else here? I was going on about unity. Okay, so let me just read this paragraph. In order to promote the concord and unity of the Church with paternal solicitude towards those who in any region adhere to liturgical forms antecedent to the reform willed by the Vatican Council II, my venerable predecessor, St. John Paul II and Benedict granted and regulated the faculty to use the Roman Missal edited by John XXIII in 1962. In this way, they intended to facilitate the ecclesial communion of those Catholics who feel attached in some earlier liturgical forms and not others. So it's saying that some Catholics are attached to the Latin Mass and not the Novus Ordo. But okay, this is an interesting point too. The Roman Missal edited by John XXIII in 1962. There are a lot of parishes that are now using the 1955 Missal, and so the Institute of Christ the King, I believe, uses exclusively the 1955 Missal. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And then I think, let's see, the FSSP, I think they have limited access to the 1955 Missals. So like, I think I heard somewhere around 20 to 30% of FSSP parishes have permission to use the 1955 Missal. This only refers to the 1962 Missal. I don't really know how that's going to be impacted. I think priests are just going to continue to use the 1955 Missal until directed otherwise, some of them. And the SSPX uses exclusively a 1962 Missal, but they're not going to, they're going to disregard this motu proprio anyway. But that's one of the differences between the Institute, the FSSP, and the SSPX is what Missal they use. And this will be kind of like a little like minor side note discussion here. The differences between the Institute, the FSSP, and the SSPX, and there's not very many. There's not very many differences because they all say the Latin Mass. If you go to any of them, you'll just notice the differences in the Missal, the 62 versus 55, and some of the major differences between those are the 55, from what I've noticed, they say the Confiteor before communion, and the additional Confiteor before communion. That's really the biggest difference. I think there's a few extra prayers, like at the end of Mass. There might be what's it called? The post communion. There might be an extra one. I'm not entirely sure on that, but there's very subtle differences except for Holy Week. Holy Week is a pretty drastic difference between 62 and pre 55. And that's like the major area of concern for the 55 Missal. But I know that I've been to Latin masses for both, using both missals, and I actually prefer the Confiteor before communion. That's my personal preference, and that's the pre-55. I think a lot of a lot of people who attend the Latin Mass would prefer the 55. But anyway, that's just a side note here. Um, I think also what I've heard is that the FSSP and obviously the SSPX will not concelebrate at the Chrism Mass, whereas the Institute, some of the priests will concelebrate the diocesan Chrism Mass, and I think that's what they're talking about by like a Vatican II loyalty test here. Now, I do want to get to some of the comments. I see there have been comments coming in on the live chat, and all right, so wow. There's a lot. Do you think the bigger issue here is receiving Jesus' body, kneeling and on the tongue? I don't know. I don't think so. What's the context of the question? I think that everyone should receive kneeling and on the tongue. That's my personal that's my personal belief. I have a tendency to believe that with Taylor Marshall. I have a tendency. I'm sorry. I actually deleted your message. I didn't mean to do that. I have a tendency to believe with Taylor Marshall that we are being corralled. I'm sorry, Shelley. Being an SSPX attendant, that many people will come. We will be excommunicated again. I'm using my phone, so I accidentally deleted your live chat. I'm really sorry about that. I didn't mean to do that. So if you want to leave another comment, go ahead. Pope Benedict still wears his pope ring and gives apostolic blessings, which only the current pope can do. All right, so here's something with Pope Benedict, and here's an interesting point. When I think there's more and more credibility to the idea that he's a prisoner in the Vatican. How's he going to respond to this? That's a key point here. How will Pope Benedict respond to this new motu proprio, basically wiping out his Summorum Pontificum, which was one of the key moments of his papacy? I think that he'll be remembered for quitting, but I also think we can't forget about Summorum Pontificum, and that's one of the key moments of Benedict's papacy. And so obviously he should have a reaction because he's still alive, and I'm sure he wants to defend his motu proprio and say, hey, I firmly believe this. I stand by it. And a lot of the cardinals that he appointed also believe that. But I think when Benedict resigned, did he want to go back to being Cardinal Ratzinger? Like, he should have gone back to being Cardinal Ratzinger and returned to Germany. Why didn't he return to Germany? That's a key here. And he does still wear white. So, and he calls himself Pope Emeritus. So what is the idea behind that? Why does he do that? Why did he not resign? Or why did he not go back to being Cardinal Ratzinger and return to Germany? Why is he living in the Vatican? Germany's his home. I think he really enjoyed living in Germany. It seems to be the case. And also, like, he could have returned and spent his retirement with his brother. It seemed like he was very close with his brother, and they could have lived in the same building and spent the rest of their lives together. Now his brother passed away, God rest his soul. But it's certainly that's certainly a good question. So I don't really know. I'm not, and I haven't studied that a lot. And there are people that think Benedict is Pope. There are people that think that Francis has renounced the papacy by some of his contradictions to the Catholic faith. And I don't really know. But what I want to know is Benedict's opinion on this. Is anyone going to get his opinion? Because that's the key right now. I can say everything I want. Restoring the Faith Media, they can say all they want, but we're just lay people. And Benedict is really the key person here, whose opinion we want. So anyway, that's pretty much all my commentary today on Summorum Pontificum. I see we got a lot of people in the live stream, so thanks for tuning in. I have the links in the description. Click on the links in the description, see what you can find on those. Restoring the Faith Media, I think they have like a 2-hour live stream, so see what they have to say on that. Read the motu proprio yourself. It's very short. See how you react to it. Leave leave a comment. Let me know what you think. How's it going to impact your Latin Mass parish? And everyone, thank you so much for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.